Hello world of YouTube and welcome to another episode of Redacted, the show where every album has a story. And the story, at parts of the core of the subject of today's video, is a part of a mythos. A big myth that was proven to be debunked 25 years ago this year that recently was sort of re-put back into the conversation of, remember that? The Y2K bug. There was a whole paranoia leading into the end of the 90s that the 90s were going to be it. At the turn of the millennium, it was going to be the end of the world because computers couldn't turn the clocks over into the year 2000, and so pandemonium was going to ensue. It's supposed to be a big thing back then. I remember when I was younger, we had like bits with my friends where we would like practice when the power would go out and stuff like that. This album, the subject of today's video, has that driving a lot of the, especially the initial energy of the record. It's an album that was also the like long-awaited solo follow-up from one of the shining members of one of the biggest rap groups of the 90s, the Wu-Tang Clan. I'm talking about Method Man and his 1998 follow-up to his debut Tical with Tical 2000 Judgement Day, whose name I'm gonna keep Tical 2000 Judgement Day.
Contact, you didn't know stack could get down like that. Line from test rocket launcher. Yes, Mr. Meth, hold the foremost step. Catch dead bro.
Now, when I did my favorite Wu-Tang solo albums list, Tical 2000 was not on there. I wouldn't say it's amongst my favorite of these solo outings or anything Method Man's released. It is a solid follow-up. I think it honestly falls under a similar breath that like Wu-Tang's second album sort of embodies, in that it's trying to be a bit overly ambitious while stuffing its runtime with a lot of filler. But my goal when redacting this was more to trim some of that fat. Not necessarily trim all of the concepts going on, more to rein those in, cut a lot of the skits that are in there out of there, while also leaning into some of the bits that the album is focusing on outside of the "here is the apocalypse that may happen" that this album has going on, with its clear embracing of the impending Judgment Day on 2000. Because there is a through line of like, where the fuck has Method Man been? And some of the skits and songs and all that. So I lean into some of that while just making for a little bit more of an engaging listen in the light of trimming a lot of those, especially skits, out of there to make just a better back and forth with the listener and balance those like hardcore leaning stuff with the more hook-centric stuff that he's pulling together on here. My version of Tical 2000 is 21 songs and 1 hour and 4 minutes long. So let's go ahead and break down the track listing track by track after showing it to you right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, the millennium is on its way.
On foreign land, keep your toast up. Hot rocks, catch a close up, your snot box. Broke up, land sharks trying to beat your feet. Hot dicks, eat wiser. Before you get the main course, taste an appetizer. Submerge in the word.
Nation Staten, I have you home by 10. Shorty started laughing. She replied straight. You ever ride while you drive?
The sound of gun burst, put the foul in the dirt. You can't think clearly from the mind control theory. Murder in the moment. Welcome to my torture chamber. Pit in the pendulum. Foul play, T2000, be Judgment Day. Face millennium. Respect 10 niggas. No win niggas. Send niggas. Back to go. Try again niggas. Shotgun slamming in your chest. Check my extinction agenda. Mind bender.
I'm thirsty. I got a big cup of Method Man lemonade right here, nigga. I need to drink this shit.
Made him and now she can't even save him. Johnny blaze him. Send him to his final resting. Back to the essence. Faces.
Play for keeps in the city that you never sleep. Pay attention, ain't no shitting where you gotta eat. We hold it down.
I move like
Show a nigga love. If he got my sound full of plug, he's not underground. Call him mud. When I flood the airwaves, house.
What's that? What's that, Shotgun?
Wu-Tang.
What's that, Shotgun?
Don't think that Wu can lose ass. Too much to gain to abuse ass.
clip full from close range. Digging in your pocket, take the loose change.
Data in your mainframe. You want it all, I want the same thing.
Fucking album. These motherfuckers at Polygram are gonna fucking fire me. This is the check writer.
With it, have fun with it. load your gun with it, and be done with it. Welcome to the Killin Fields. Johnny Blaze the Ghost Rider. Ghost stories by the campfire.
You better travel with heat, speaking my piece. You survive my attempt to homicide. Try to slide and lick 5 rounds to hit the building.
How you been? I see you still trying to fuck with other women, man. Remember when I first met you in my cousin's house? Take the head of a snake. Behold, I'm again. Ain't no love for the rich. Only strong will survive.
Now, to get what I normally do after I talk about the track listing out of the way, as you saw, a majority of what I cut were the skits, and mostly it's because a lot of the skits are where the album really feels the most drawn out, even if some are the most brief of a sort of interlude between tracks. It really just kind of disrupts the flow. You may also notice for fans of the album that I did keep a lot of the more like apocalyptic stuff in check because it feels like a big part of this record's identity. So I kept the intro and Perfect World in that place because they do lead off the record well. I just think that it kind of bogs down the front half and, you know, sort of feels like a lost thread by the time the album's over. And so I mostly broke those moments up after this point to kind of keep it as a lingering part, especially considering how later on they sort of reference the sort of apocalyptic threads being sort of leading to nothing, and I felt like if they were more of like a, I don't know, sonic thematic through line, they would kind of stick out more, or at least sit with the listener better. But after that, I kind of give like a 2-piece nugget of like classic sides of Method Man out the gate with Dangerous Ground and Sweet Love. Dangerous Ground feels like you're sort of warm up with that sort of Wu-Tang adjacent sound that goes into an actual like collab with some of the clan with like Capadonna on Sweet Love. But that song being more about sort of relationships and love is still like a very Method Man thing, but it sort of keeps his energy and just showing where he's grown with his 2 big flavors that he sort of leans with heavily. And early in the album collaboration that I also kept, I just bumped it up a little bit later in the track listing. It's still early on in the grand scheme, but it sort of has that off-kilter energy from like the ensuing apocalypse that's introduced with its hook. But Cradle Rock, the collaboration with Lisa Left Eye, is what I put next in the track listing, if only to sort of reintroduce that off-kilter energy, especially bouncing off of a couple songs that I would say are sort of your standard, again, Method Man flair. But I think that like this is another hard-hitting jam and sort of helps sort of ramp up the energy a little more, if anything. Plus, that's sort of the energy that goes into the Shaolin What skit, which I have coming after that, and so I don't know. I think the 2 songs bridge well together. But the Shaolin What skit is sort of one of a couple moments where Method Man kind of introduces a little nugget of an idea and expands on that a little bit just to kind of carry the listener through just a little taste of something. And I think that it kind of bridges Cradle Rock and Suspect Chin Music pretty well, honestly, because Suspect Chin Music kind of really leans in harder on that like Wu-Tang heavy energy with another great Street Life collaboration, one of a handful that he was doing during this era, and I think has that sort of like off-kilter energy from Cradle Rock, but again just kind of goes into the more weirder ideas that like he and the clan were doing up to that point in their career, especially following Wu-Tang Forever. But I figured after this sort of dwelling in that sort of off-kilter energy, I would pivot into a sort of catchy little pocket with 2 catchy-ass bangers with a skit in the middle to sort of add to a theme of this Method Man's been missing. Where the hell has Method Man been? Pulling together the follow-up to his very well-received debut with Step by Step and Torture, with the Where's Method Man skit in between that. It's one of a few of the more just sort of direct tangents that I kept mostly to keep some of the spirit of what this energy had cooking at its core outside of the more out there ideas. There's a real through line in this that I do appreciate, and I think that because on top of doing the, you know, more energetic but hype as fuck aggressive stuff, I think he does sneak in some hook-driven jams pretty solidly, like Step by Step and Torture. Honestly, I think Torture is a fantastic moment. You know, on the original version, it's what leads into the Where's Method Man skit, but I think, honestly, given the sort of radio DJs calling out for the iconic Method Man, to follow that with this very hook-driven song that I think also is reflective on where he has been, makes more sense to me personally. From that catchy little sandwich, I wanted to transition into some real hype shit with a little posse cut sandwich with a couple just other great jams from this session thrown in there, with leading with Play for Keeps, a posse cut with Street Life coming back, Rebel INS, and Mobb Deep, who all just spit heat, and I think is just a nice sort of pickup in just intensity at this point in the record before going into the infectious retro grandfather. You know, there's a part at the end of the song where there's like a kid coming in with a little sort of disruption of the beat that sort of gets done again in the Dooney Boy skit, with I think Method Man's son sort of contributing to the record, and that's sort of like something that it feels like he's rapped about a lot during this era, so I kept that there in Retro Godfather, because they kind of pair really well together, and sort of help add some heart to this like core of just heat. Because from that moment, the Retro Godfather and Dooney Boy skit, I go to Spazzola, the Wu-Tang posse cut moment. We've got Street Life back again with Rebel INS, but we've also got Killin and Mastakilla, who are another like clan member and like heavy collaborator with the group. But Corey Woods also crops up in the song, and again, it's just another heat-filled, just banger to sort of help round out this portion of the album. It's got a really, you know, classic-sounding piano-driven instrumental, and it helps send this portion off before he does another Street Life collaboration, Gridiron Rap, but it's a song to sort of like bring it back down to a little more of just a raw, sort of intimate sort of style, hardcore leaning jam still. Before Check Writer, another skit to sort of lean into the Where's Method Man Been making his sophomore album shtick, having another moment where like now he's being confronted with the label, like, hey man, we need this follow-up, like now, where the fuck have you been? Before going into Killin Fields. Another really catchy jam. I wanted to lead these skits where it talks about the absence of Method Man with like a reaffirmation of, hey man, I'm still Method Man. I could still write incredible fucking jams. It's got a nice beat that has some good strings in it. It's got a strong hook while keeping that hardcore energy much more intact than some of the other hook-driven songs. I think it's a really good song that comes in later on the original version, and I think it's a nice later in the album cut. It also has an intro in its skit to sort of introduce the beginning of the end of the record with talking about, you know, the apocalypse not really coming, and, you know, while there was a hiccup in the world, it really wasn't that bad sort of moment. But it's honestly a pretty good song. It's a personal favorite from mine of this era. And it sort of does introduce the beginning and the end with Big Dogs after that. The Redman collaboration, you know, he was teased earlier in the Where's Method Man skit, and there was obviously a collaboration that was going to happen during this era because these two were just really linking up and making some great shit. It's also a song that was on their first collaborative album, Blackout, that came out the year after this, but it's like an iconic Method Man Redman song, and it was originally here first, so I put it in this portion. But I wanted to sort of keep that sort of unity and sort of camaraderie of that track into the song after that. One more collaboration with Street Life, a skit, Snuffed Out. It's a skit that follows another skit in the album, a skit featuring a voicemail from none other than Donald Trump circa 1998, because he was a completely different symbol than he is now in the world, and it's an interesting look into the world in 1998 to some degree. I cut it just because, like, not today, man. Like, if I'm gonna spin a better version of Cal 2000, it's one that doesn't have Donald Trump on it. It also takes the, like, Where's Method Man arc in, like, a weird direction with, like, the CEO skit after that. So I just cut it. I don't think it adds anything to the conversation, so I cut it. But I kept Snuffed Out because I think that as a skit, it works, especially when it comes to, like, Street Life and Method Man making a song about just being there for your friends and, you know, empowerment through your friends and all that. It follows the Redman song well, so I kept that. It helps transitions into breakups to makeups fucking smoothly, honestly, which is a collaboration with D'Angelo. A fucking great song. While this album didn't end up on my favorite Wu-Tang solo albums, like Best Of, I think that moments like this really stand out and elevate this to, like, this is a record with some absolute classics in its track listing. This also sort of acts as like a payoff to having like Sweet Love earlier in the track listing when it talks about like relationships and the like. It's an interesting sort of like further on down the road. You still care for this person, but you're just on completely different planets now. I think it's a really strong song. I think it's got a good hook with D'Angelo, and I really enjoy the instrumental palette. Again, it kind of helps bring to this coming to an end sonically sort of a feeling really strongly. It's a good song. I closed the album with the title track because it has that finality to it. It's the last full song on the original release, and I kept it as the last song totally on my Redacted because it not only bookends the album well with the intro skit having the name as it from a thematic sense, but it's also just a really strong closer to it to give it just this one last banger before the album closes its back page. And that's my version of Tical 2000. Would you like to listen to it for yourself? And let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you'd like to, it is linked in the description, a YouTube and a Spotify link. If you like this, give it a like. If you want to see more, consider subscribing. I drop 2 to 4 vids a week depending on what I've got going on. Thank you again so very much for watching this. I have been Viral Rack. You guys will get days, lessons, situations, and I'll see you another day.
Woken by the smell of sorted power and defecting shortly after. Fist bump, dry land, blackish. Catnap 15 back to Swiss cheese, the flagship. Blue in the men